Hi everybody, I'm Elizabeth Hines from OurPaleoFamily.com, and today we're talking turkey because it is very close to Thanksgiving, and I thought it might be helpful to just show you prepping a turkey. And I'm trying a new method this year because I have searched and I've read lots of recipes, lots of expert advice on how to end up with a juicy turkey, and there are as many people putting out videos. There are probably different methods, but I have found one that is intriguing to me, and so we're going to try it today. And this came from a lady, I don't know if she has a website, but she has a YouTube channel, and it's Saving Dinner, and she suggests cooking your turkey at a very high temperature, 500 degrees, for just 30 minutes, and that seals the turkey, seals in the juices, and you don't baste it, you don't open the door and check on it. When it's close to time for it to be ready, then you can check. You lower the temperature after that 30 minutes to 375 and supposedly come out with this miraculously juicy and flavorful turkey. So we're going to try that today. And so the reason why I'm showing you as well is that I'm doing my paleo version. And the only thing really different or special, I guess, would be for paleo, we're not using butter, we're using ghee instead, which is a clarified butter. So all the milk solids have been removed. In her version, actually, she bastes the turkey before it goes in the oven with some butter mixed with some oil, and obviously we're not using any vegetable oils on the paleo diet, and we also don't want the butter. And she mixed her butter and her oil because the butter has the milk solids in it, and that will burn at 500 degrees, and you don't want your turkey to burn right off the bat or ever through the cooking process. So we're using ghee, which is clarified butter. Those milk solids have been removed. It's basically like butter oil. So it is very heat tolerant, and it will work great in this high heat application. So what I have for you here is a very large roasting pan, and somebody must have given this to us. I'm guessing my parents, when they moved and downsized, I inherited this, and I've never used it, but I found it in my attic, and I actually have a very large turkey. So we're going to use this big one today. Usually I just use I have a stoneware, roughly 9 by 13 pan, and I use that for a generally small bird. I try to buy a 10 to 12 pound turkey. If we're serving a lot of people, I'll buy 2 10 to 12 pound turkeys. The smallest I could find at my local store was almost 15 pounds. So that's what I have today. It's a very large turkey. And also I would say that if you are hosting Thanksgiving and you're serving a small crowd, and you don't want gobs and gobs of turkey left over, I know a lot of people love that, but a lot of people don't, then you could get a chicken and nobody would know. As a matter of fact, can I tell you a secret? I have a book called Your Paleo Holiday, and it is an ebook, and it is full of all of these traditional recipes for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, Super Bowl party, lots of recipes. And my traditional roasted turkey, it's a chicken. That's the picture. Because as I kept practicing, we just couldn't have all these 15-pound turkeys around my house for 4 people. So anyway, it's perfectly acceptable to serve a chicken on Thanksgiving. My sleeves are flapping, and that's reminding me, part of what I wanted to talk to you about is how to get ready to get your turkey ready. Okay, so we have the pan. This is a large roasting pan. It's nonstick, which wouldn't be my preference, but that's what I happen to have, and so that's what I'm going to use. And if you buy a roasting pan, it's going to come with a rack like this. And if I were making just a roast chicken where I didn't want gravy, or maybe a big beef roast or a pork roast, I would use this rack. But for my paleo turkey, we are not going to use this, so I'll just whisk it aside. I've rolled up my sleeves because, once I get into the mess of the turkey, I don't want to be fussing with anything. I have my apron on, and my turkey's back here, and I'm going to show you how to get that going. But just want to make a couple notes. If you buy a frozen turkey, which they are cheaper than a fresh turkey, it's going to take a good 4 to 5 days to thaw, of course, depending on the size, and it's always best to let it thaw in the refrigerator, so keep that in mind. Fresh turkeys are pretty widely available. That's usually where you'll find the antibiotic-free, hormone-free, organic, blah, blah, blah. Those are usually fresh. So then you don't have to worry about that. Just pick it up the day before. And when you unwrap your turkey, so when I buy my fresh organic turkey from Whole Foods, they hand me a piece of paper, just a sheet of paper with that turkey with some instructions. When you buy a wrapped up turkey like this is a Butterball from Kroger, because I didn't want to spend the money on an organic turkey to make a video. So that kind of turkey will come with a little packet of instructions, and it was wrapped in plastic so it's not dirty. And inside you will find typically a couple recipes and instructions, and they'll talk you through everything from how to clean it, thawing it, cleaning it, getting it ready, and even carving it. And I don't particularly care for the way they say to carve it, but you can do that if you want that Norman Rockwell presented on the table sort of thing. So anyway, don't throw this away. Also, there will be a tag, and that tag told you how much it was going to cost, and it tells you how much your turkey weighs, and you need to know how much it weighs when you go to figure out how long you're going to cook it. And my experience is 15 to 20 minutes per pound typically, and they say in here for 10 to 18 pounds unstuffed, which is what we're doing, is 3 to 3.5 hours. 10 to 18 pounds is a really wide range. So I would look at the lower end of that and start from that point. Or I can look at my 14-pound turkey, and if 10 minutes per pound would be roughly 140 minutes, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I'm going to do 30 minutes at 500, and that is going to speed up the cooking process somewhat. So after that 30 minutes at 500, I reduce to 375. I'm going to let that go without me peeking or touching or anything for about 2 hours, and then I will start taking its temperature. So let's get now into getting our turkey ready. I'm going to show you how to clean it, what to do when you open the package, and get it ready to go in the oven. Okay, so besides rolling up my sleeves, I want to have my area clean. I'm going to have my turkey in the sink, so I want my sink to be clean. I just washed dishes, so I just cleaned it out when I was done. So my sink is clean. I have some paper towels nearby. I have some disinfecting wipes nearby because I'm going to want to wipe everything down that the turkey has touched. Trash bags, which my turkey is sitting in my trash bags, aka my grocery bags right now, and I'm going to try to keep my trash in there, but it's not going to all stay in there. So I'll just put everything in. I'll have this handy. I have a couple Ziploc bags. I have two because we reuse our bags, and I feel like they always have little tiny leaks. And I'm going to put the giblets, the neck, and whatever else they give me. It's not always the same thing that they give you in that regard, but I'm going to put them in this bag, 2 bags, so I can seal that up and stick that in my fridge for when my turkey is done and I cook that carcass for the broth. So at this point, I've cut the turkey's little netting off, and I'm going to put it in the sink, and I can feel there's a lot of moisture in there. It's like a balloon that has, like a water balloon. So I'm just going to cut it open, and I don't want to cut the skin, so I'm being somewhat careful, but if you do, it's certainly not the end of the world. So we're doing this in the sink because we want to wash the turkey. We need to give it a rinse. So here comes that juice. Did you see it? So just sort of like wrapping away and cutting away at Christmas wrapping, you know. And I'm going to set my scissors aside because I'm going to need those. So I'm just going to take the turkey out, let all that juice run down the drain. At this point, my hands are all contaminated. Everything I touch is going to be contaminated, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so there will be this flap of skin. And anything that's kind of flappy like this, I just cut off. So these are my kitchen scissors. They are a really good pair. They're nice and sharp. I'm just going to cut this away. And can you see this paper sticking out? So the bird will have 2 cavities. Okay, so here's the one cavity. And this is in paper. This will be like a heart, kidneys, maybe liver. I'm not sure what all's in there. I'll unwrap it as I get ready to cook it with my broth. Okay, so stick your hand in there. Make sure there's nothing else weird going on in there. No eggs, no baby chickens or anything. Just kidding. And then this end. Okay, so You saw how they had cleverly made this little loop of skin, and they tucked the legs in for me, but I don't want that because I want this to be open. And I'm going to cut that off. You could, of course, do this with a sharp knife. And can you see there's still a chunk of ice right here? This turkey has been in my fridge for almost 5 days. And there is still a chunk of ice in the middle. So, oh, and there's a prize. Okay, so there's the neck. Okay, so we want that. I'm going to cook that. That'll add a lot of good flavor. If you make giblet gravy, which I know some people love that, and some people don't. If you make giblet gravy, you'll want to save it for that purpose. And if not, you just want to save it for your broth. So again, just look in there. There's one more little chunk of ice. I'm just going to run some cold water and see if I can unlodge that piece of ice. And at the same time, I'm rinsing the bird, which was what I wanted to do. And this guy looks really nice and clean. I'm looking for feathers. I almost always find feathers on a whole bird. Hello. And I don't see any. So I'm going to let the water run out of both cavities. It just feels kind of unkind to be hopping it around. We thank you for your sacrifice, turkey. Okay, so I'm patting him dry at this point, the top. I'll lift up his legs and I'll pat him dry on the back side. Okay, let me grab another paper towel. And I'm going to wipe my hands. I'm just going to wipe the counter where I'm going to set my, oh, you know what, I forgot. We got to build our, we have to build our rack. So I'm going to lay this paper towel down in the sink. I'm going to let the turkey just kind of rest on that for a minute. Let me wipe my hands really well. And we'll get our pan ready for the turkey. Okay, so like I said, the difference between this turkey and any old regular turkey in terms of fitting our paleo diet has to do with the way I make the rack in my roasting pan. So I'm not using that metal rack that came with my pan. I did wash this celery. I scrubbed it actually really well, and my carrots. Is that we are using these vegetables to make our rack so that we have a great base for gravy that doesn't need thickeners like cornstarch, or even a paleo thickener would be arrowroot, something like that. We're going to have these vegetables make this great gravy for us. And you know what? Sometimes it's a little thicker than others, and sometimes I find that I don't have to thicken at all. Most of the time I don't need to thicken my gravy at all. And sometimes I need to add just a very small slurry of one of those starches, but typically not. So here I have some long, full-size carrots. I think we're such a baby carrot society. Everybody's eating baby carrots. It feels funny to buy full-sized carrots almost. I just did a terrible job of cutting that one. Usually, if I'm going to cut a large carrot to use in a recipe, I would cut it in half like this because it's so much easier. But I was trying to keep them pretty and long. But it doesn't matter. It's just going under a turkey and it's going to get roasted for a while. So you probably heard right when I started, my oven beeped. So my oven is up to 500 degrees. I've taken one of the racks out. I have 3 racks in my oven. I just have an average size oven. And I can't fit all 3 of them in. So I have one on the very lowest setting, and the other one is on the highest setting. And it's, I could take that one out too. I'm not using it obviously, but it's fine to leave it in there. So I have my rack, carrots and celery every other one, and then I have an onion, I would just use one large onion, or mine were pretty small, so I have 2 small sweet onions. And my carrots and my celery are primarily making the rack for my turkey, and I will just lay these onions across the top. And then we're simply using salt and pepper and ghee, like I explained at the top of the video. So do this however you want, whatever's easier for you. Yeah, it'll look pretty if you make rings, but again, it's certainly not necessary, because what's going to happen is the turkey is going to roast, and as the turkey's juices drip down onto these vegetables, it's going to create this amazing flavorful base, and these are just going to get all soft, and they're going to end up in a blender of some sort. So if they look pretty now or not, it doesn't matter one bit. Though I do like to keep my carrots and celery as whole as possible, because they're serving as the rack to keep the turkey up off the bottom of the pan. So just peel those. The other recipes that I have in my book for Thanksgiving, I'll peek at it here and tell you. So I have the turkey, of course. I have a gluten-free, it's not paleo because it does have gluten-free bread, but a gluten-free dressing. Some people are stuffing people and some people are dressing people. We're dressing people, which dressing is basically stuffing not in the turkey, right? The turkey gravy, which I'll show you that because it kind of goes with the turkey when our turkey's all done. And sweet potato casserole, fresh cranberry sauce, the best paleo pie crust you've ever had, pumpkin pie, and German chocolate pecan pie. And in one of my posts I talked about apple pie as well, but that's not in the book. It's actually just on my website for free. So those are our Thanksgiving recipes. So it can get you through all the basics, and you make your own green beans or whatever other veggies on the side you'd like to have. Okay, so I have my rack all ready, and now I'm going to get the ghee and the salt and pepper on my turkey and put it in. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to put ghee all over my turkey. And actually what I'm going to do is turn him over, because he's going to go in my pan breast side up. So I'm going to take care of the back side right now, and then I'll put him in the pan and do the top side. So I have about 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup of ghee, and you could certainly use a basting brush, but I'm just going to use my spoon to kind of get the bulk of it on here, and then I'll use my brush to move it around and make sure I've gotten in all the little crevices. And it's kind of solidifying a little bit because the turkey is cold, but that's okay. So get down here under his arms. So I missed some back here. In my bowl I have, my recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And I actually doubled that because this is such a big bird. So I have 4 teaspoons of salt and a full teaspoon of pepper. And then I'm just going to start sprinkling that on. So I used this hand to rub some of the ghee around, and so I'm using this hand for the salt and pepper so that one stays wet and one stays dry. So kind of massage that around. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt and pepper in this little back cavity. Put a little spoonful of ghee in there. Okay, and here's my pan. So Mr. Turkey gets flipped over. Set right on top of that rack. Scoop that over. And we'll just repeat. We'll get the rest of this ghee on. Just spoon it over, okay? And again, following our high heat method, we're not going to worry about trussing this turkey. I'm not going to baste it. Once I get it in, it's in. Okay, whoops, there I just got my dry hand wet. Oh well. I always seem to do that. I manage to keep one hand wet and one hand dry for about 30 seconds. And then that just goes by the wayside. Okay, so ghee all over, salt and pepper all over. Again, I'll make sure I put a generous portion of that down in the cavity. Rub the outsides of those legs. Just get in all the spaces, okay? And if you'd like to eat the skin, this will be really yummy, flavorful, crispy skin. And if you don't, it's just helping flavor the bird, and you're going to discard all of that. So, that's it. I'm just going to wash my hands, obviously, before I pick this up. And then it's going to go in the oven at 500 for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to turn the temperature down to 375. And in 2 hours, I will give it a check and see how its temperature is coming. And that's it. Just leave his legs like that, leave his wings like this. It's totally fine. No fuss. Okay, I'll see you at the end. Hi everybody. I want to show you this beautiful turkey, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do with him. So, here we go. Lovely golden brown, and I put him in at 500 degrees, and I didn't open the door until I took it out 2.5 hours later. And I will say that it would have been done sooner. So how do I know when it's done? Because I wasn't looking at it, I wasn't peeking, but you need to take his temperature. Really the only way to know for sure is to take the temperature. And you can get one of these instant read meat thermometers. You can use it for other things, but they're typically called meat thermometers. I linked to one on my website, so ourpaleofamily.com. There's a resources tab up at the top. I think it says resources and ingredients, and it's where I link to, or at least talk about, what I consider the indispensable kitchen tools and pantry ingredients for this paleo way of life. And an instant read thermometer is one of them. And this one was recommended by Cook's Country, America's Test Kitchen, one of those, and it's quite a few years old, but I have linked to one that is just like it. I think thermometers are like cars and mattresses and lawnmowers, everything else. They come out with new models every year. But anyway, one of these is what you need. You turn it on, and you need to stick it down in, you turn this so you can see. You want to take the temperature in the thigh, and you don't want to touch the bone. So how do you know if you touch the bone? Well, it's hard, so you'll feel that. And you want 180 in the thigh, and 175 to 180 is what I have read. And this is cooled off. It's been out of the oven for about 15 minutes. It's down to 165, but it was 185 when I took it out. So you take the temperature in the thigh, not touch between the leg and the breast, down in that thigh area, and not touching the bone. So I'm sticking it even further. Ooh, now it's going even further down in, and it's still 180 down there. So we're perfect. And then for the breast, you want 165 to 170, and stick it in this way. And it's 182. So it's done, and I want to let it sit. So I said it's been out for 15 to 20 minutes, and I want to continue to let it sit for probably 15 more minutes before I carve it, let some of that juice soak back in, and it's certainly not going to cool off. So it'll be fine, and then I'll show you what we do with all that yummy stuff in the bottom of the pan to make some gravy. So I'll see you again in a few minutes. Okay, let's dig into this turkey. I cannot stand it any longer. I've got to taste this guy. All right, so how to get him out of here? Tricky. So you have a couple options. I have a nice sturdy wooden spoon. I have some nice sturdy tongs. I like to use the cavity, and then also support it from underneath. Get it over here, and I see that piece of celery, and I want that piece of celery. I think I can probably grab it. And there was a little bit of carrot under there too. Okay, so we'll let the turkey just sit there for a minute. Now, you can see that some of my veggies are just burnt to a crisp, and that is the result of that 500 degree cooking temperature, but not all of them are. And so I'm just going to kind of scrape around, and if I can get it, then that means it's going to taste great, and it's not going to be burned tasting. I know that one was pretty crispy, but it's all right. Whoops. Celery is pretty well stuck, but I can get it. There we go. So gather those up. And so we have some onions, some celery, and some carrots. And then I'll tilt my pan. I have a nice amount of, whoops, I don't want those real crispy ones. Flavorful juices right into my blender. Now, if you have my book and you followed the instructions from my book, which was not this 500 degrees for 30 minutes method, this is new, then all of those vegetables in the bottom of the pan would have been perfect. They would not have been burned like that. But there's enough in here. This is going to be delicious. So I want 3 cups. Looking for the cup side. Most blenders will have measurements on the side. So I had some broth in the freezer. And I believe this is just about 2 cups. And so with my drippings from the bottom of the pan and my broth, that's about 2.5. You could deglaze your pan. I could pour this water in my pan and get a little bit more flavorful stuff out of the bottom. But my chicken broth this last time was really, really flavorful. I would say it was like condensed almost. So I am happy to water it down just a teeny bit. And really, those vegetables that are cooked at the bottom of the turkey are super flavorful. There is just tons and tons of flavor in there. So it can almost be too rich. So watering that down a little bit is a good thing. All right, so I'm just going to blend. Pardon the noise. That's looking pretty thin. You just want to blend it to break up all of those vegetables, all those fibrous vegetables. I just want to give it a taste for seasoning. It's so good. That's the essence of the turkey right there. There are still some lumps in there, so I'm going to blend it a little bit more. So you don't have to watch me keep doing that. What I want at this point, because this is the gravy I'm going to serve on Thanksgiving, I'm not going to thicken it. I told you at the outset that sometimes it's thick enough just like it is, and you don't have to thicken it. This is not going to be thick enough. I'm going to need to make a slurry with some arrowroot and water, but I don't want to do that right now because this is basically like a really flavorful broth, and I'm just going to freeze it, and I'm going to thaw it on Thanksgiving morning, and I'll heat it up, and when we're about ready to serve dinner, I'll have it simmering, and it will thicken some because some of that liquid will evaporate while it's just simmering on the stove. And then when we're ready to eat, I'll add my slurry of arrowroot starch and water until I'll just add a little bit at a time, let it kind of bubble away until it gets to the thickness that I want for my gravy. But this will be perfect. I'm going to blend that for just probably another minute or so. It takes a little while to break down those vegetables. But I wanted to show you too how to deal with this turkey, because that can be overwhelming and really daunting. I didn't need that. So I want to start by sharpening my knives, because you're not going to get very far if you don't have a nice sharp knife. So I did a whole video on knife sharpening. Let me just do this real fast. And I'll go ahead and get a couple knives ready, because sometimes I want this long, what's more considered a boning knife. And for part of it, I'm going to want my sharp knife. Okay, so again, the Norman Rockwell version is that you put a bunch of herbs in your dressing and all around this platter, and you take this to the table. But you can do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but that's kind of everybody then is waiting for you to carve the turkey and all your side dishes are getting cold, because the mashed potatoes and the vegetables and the dressing, all that stuff gets cold really fast. I'm just being honest. And so I think going ahead and carving the turkey and presenting it on a platter as slices of meat is the way to go. And also the way they'll show you is to, sometimes this wing is taken off or kind of pushed to the side, to slice just like this. But in fact, it's really better. There's this bone down the middle, so you kind of get to the side of that. If you cut each section of the breast meat off and then slice it, whoops, the other direction. And you know what? This isn't really pretty, and it isn't camera worthy, honestly, which is another reason not to do it at the table. I'm gonna get my cutting board. All right, so after I very carefully moved him onto this platter, I'm gonna move him back. Come on, turkey. Okay, so I cut down, just kind of follow along until you're able to get free this half of the breast meat. So we got the wing down here. I'm just going to start cutting over. So see, this is so ugly to do at the table, and it really makes a big mess. Okay, that's really hot on the inside still. And there you have this nice piece of white meat, move over turkey, that you then slice. And I try to leave the skin on top because some people like to eat the skin. It's nice and crispy. It had all that yummy ghee and salt and pepper, so it's super flavorful. I can tell by looking at this meat how juicy it is. I'm going to slice this whole thing. And I promise you, you carve your turkey in the kitchen just like this and then put it on the platter, lay it out nicely on the platter. You can still put your sprigs of herbs, and you can pile some dressing around there, and it will look beautiful. So you have a nice section of turkey breast. I'll eat that piece. And then we can take the dark meat, which I know lots of people, that's their favorite. It's my favorite. And you just start pulling, and it will come away. There's some right there. And sort of make a pile of your dressing in the middle, and some herbs tucked around. And then you have a pile of the dark meat, and you have a pile of the white meat. And now the breast meat, you can slice it and it looks really beautiful. And the dark meat is not going to be quite as artful. But you just get chunks as you can. And you know, it sort of helps you. It tells you how it needs to come apart. That's so crispy and lovely. So that's a big piece. I'm going to cut that in half. There's not as much of the dark meat, and so we'll cut that in a little bit smaller pieces so it goes further. And so if you read any women's magazine, they'll talk about how to save your calories and not gain weight through the holidays. And I don't know, if ever there was a time to gain a little bit of weight, the holidays would be it, right? But one of the things that they will invariably say is to eat white meat and not the dark meat. But in fact, the dark meat has just negligible more fat and therefore calories than the white meat. It's really hardly any, like less than a gram, I believe, per serving. So if you like the dark meat better, which it has more flavor, it's more moist, more tender, juicy, then go for it. Have the dark meat and enjoy it. My kids, well, all of them, we have to teach them their manners, right? They would just say, I'll take the drumstick and we take the whole thing. So we make them share. And that's it. So I'll go through, and the thigh is a little bit harder. You have to, well, I'll go ahead and show you how to do it. Sometimes, so I'll go ahead and do the breast typically, but you can just peel away that skin, and usually with just a fork you can get some of this thigh meat off, or you can, once you've done both sides of the breast, you can flip it over. This is this nice, really nice juicy part of the thigh. And just start working it apart. And again, you know, this isn't lovely. I would not want to do this at the table for sure. There's this really nice, nice big piece right here. And just sort of clean that off, get that skin off of there, and give that a slice. And that's it. And we'll just finish going through, and then I can promise you I'll break down this carcass and stick it in my Instant Pot and make some broth. And that's how simple it is to do your turkey. And I'll write this up on the website. Again, it's in my book, Your Paleo Holiday, which you can find on my website through Amazon or iTunes. But this method, this new method, was great. I loved it. 500 degrees for 30 minutes, and then 375 for an hour and a half to 2 hours. My 14-pound turkey was, I put it in for 2 hours, and it would have been done probably an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. But it's not overcooked now. I promised you I'd taste it. So this was the tail end of the breast. If ever there was going to be a dry piece, it would be this. It's not dry. Let's taste this dark meat. It's so good. And I know some of you probably thought it was an excessive amount of salt and pepper that I put on the outside, about 2 teaspoons for this whole turkey. It's not salty at all. It just is nicely flavored, and that is what you want. Let me show you one more thing with this gravy. This really inexpensive strainer is another indispensable kitchen tool in my opinion. So I should have shown you this before. I have in the past simply done what I showed you, blended all the vegetables to make my gravy. But in this particular instance, I was getting the feeling that some of those pieces of celery in particular were not blending up. And so I simply decided to run it through my strainer. And this is not super fine. It's fine enough that these big pieces will get caught. But for example, sometimes I'll cook down something like raspberries to use in a whatever, some kind of dessert, and I want to get the seeds out, and seeds will, not all of them, but some seeds will pass through this strainer. So it's not a super fine one. But so I am stirring and kind of pushing because I'm not opposed to some solids in my gravy, but I don't want stringy celery. Does that make sense? So simply run this through real quickly, and then always scrape the bottom. There'll be lots of yummy stuff on that side. And then you don't have anything that would be unpleasant to eat. See what came out? That's mostly celery, those strings and celery. And I'll show you already, even after that just sat there for a few minutes, it's thickened up somewhat. And it's this beautiful golden sort of orange color from the carrots. It's lovely. You won't believe how much flavor comes from this. Definitely make your gravy this way, whether you're paleo or not. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you enjoy your time with friends and family, and remember all the many things you have to be thankful for. I'm thankful for you. I don't know why there's so many people watching my videos on YouTube, but I hope it means that you are wanting to cook, and wanting to cook in a healthful way, to keep yourself healthy, to keep your family healthy. And I hope that you're learning something from my videos. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I wish you the best. Thanks.